welcome to our latest installment of Good Trouble, a series that's named after the Honorable John Lewis, and a very important quote that he made that's very quotable from 2018 in June. And some of you may remember this quote. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Like in our other series, today we have joined with us members of a very important community on our campus who are people who are leaders, who are doing incredible work in terms of advocacy, intellectual production, administrative, as well as supporting our students and faculty and staff on campus. And so I want to start by welcoming 5 very important leaders on our campus in the Chicanx Latinx community, and they're leaders as well, just in general for our campus. And so some of these folks have been here for quite a long time and have a deep history on our campus. And some people are newer to our campus, but nonetheless, they bring a degree of expertise and commitment and advocacy, I think, that will inspire all of our viewers today. So I'm going to start by going around the horn on my screen to call on individuals, and I'm going to ask you to briefly introduce yourself, tell us, what you do, tell us a little something about yourself, and then we'll go around and talk about some of how you got to where you got in terms of the work that you do, and where do you see are the critical important issues for our community. So I'm going to start by going to Lilly. Lilly.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and hello, everyone. I'm Lilly Pinedo Gangai, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the program director of our Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center here at San Jose State University that was established in spring of 2018. So we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary on the campus, which is really exciting. Maybe we'll throw some kind of pachanga, hopefully, in person to celebrate that milestone. But although the center was formally established only 4 years ago, the efforts and the activities that led to the establishment of the center started way before that. And so some of the members, my colleagues here in this space, were really instrumental to making that happen. We had our Chicanx Latinx Student Success Task Force that did incredible work, and included our amazing student leaders to ensure that there was a safe space, a welcoming space for all of our Chicanx Latinx students here at San Jose State. And so in summary, I have the honor of creating a variety of support systems and programs and activities so that our students feel connected to this larger community here at our campus, so that they find familia, right, home away from home. We see the centro, we call it the centro, short for Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center, which could be a mouthful. So the centro, really a hub here on our campus, and we're physically located central to campus within the student union. And so we welcome any student community member that wants to find community. You don't have to identify as Chicanx or Latinx to be in our space. If you're interested in learning more about our cultura, our heritage, we welcome anybody who's interested in finding that connection. And so we've been doing this now for 4 years, and I've had the pleasure of working in partnership with a variety of members of our community, because it requires all of us. It's not just the centro. There's only 2 of us. I want to acknowledge Elisa Aquino, who's our program coordinator for the centro, and our 5 amazing student success leaders that really are the pulse for our work, letting us know what's happening in the student community and what the needs are, what the challenges are, but also what are their strengths and how do we leverage that. So just wanted to recognize the amazing work that everybody does, including these amazing folks on this call, to help support our Chicanx Latinx students on our campus.
Thank you, Lilly. Thank you for that really thorough context, I think, for the development of the center, as well as the contributions of members of our community and also on this call. So great. So next we're going to go to Ana.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, good evening, whenever you're ready to watch this video. Again, my name is Ana Navarrete. I'm the program director for the Undocky Spartan Student Resource Center here on campus. And similar to Centro, we opened up going into our 4th year as well this January. And so I've been working within higher ed and addressing undocumented student issues since I was in community college. I grew up in all over Northern California, actually. I was actually born in Madero, Tamaulipas, Mexico, although my family is from Veracruz, Mexico. I lived in the United States since I was 9 months old. And so in California, I lived in Watsonville, I've lived in East San Jose, and eventually we ended up in Stockton, where my family currently is till now. And so as a community college student, just trying to understand, an undocumented person myself, just trying to understand, like, how do I access higher education? And so a lot of the work that I do is, personal to myself, but also just learning from other undocumented folks from different communities and just how complex these issues are and how different they impact us. And so as part of the work that we do here in the center is trying to bring awareness to some of those issues and just how complex immigration can be and the way that it impacts a person's educational path, career path, and also families. Because one of the things we don't often talk about is just how deportations impact students, right, regardless of immigration status. And so part of the work that we do is bring awareness to those issues, but also provide information to students so they can feel empowered to move forward. Just yesterday I met someone who was part of the Leticia A network, which was a network who really pushed for AB 540, which is one of those state laws that we work around with so much. And so we really work on trying to build off of the work of our previous legacy, and just continue to push for more policy change and to open up opportunities for students who don't have a Social Security number, and to be able to create equitable support systems on our campus that doesn't necessarily other our students, because I think that's something that often happens within the immigrant and the undocumented community especially. And so, I'm a one-person show, and I do have an amazing team of 4 undergraduate student staff who support the work in the center and also keep us informed about what's happening and what are the things that are critical right now. So even though we try to plan ahead as best as we can throughout the year, oftentimes we also have to just flow with everything, given that there have been a lot of changes in the last 4 years to the immigration system. So we're just trying to keep up with the changes, but also keep our students as motivated as possible to continue going, because we don't know when this is going to end. I know that it's been going on since I was an undergraduate, and even before me. And so we just got to keep on pushing, but highlight the stories and the narratives of our students and just amazing thing that they have been able to do despite of the challenges.
You're muted.
Thank you for your thorough explanation of some of the challenges, right? For all of us, I think, is a moving terrain, but with yours, there's a particular intersection and literacy that's needed for all of the policies and regulations and things that change at the drop of a hat, according to court rulings and stuff. And so you've been a wonderful advocate and expert on our campus. Really appreciate it. So next, we're going to go to Marcos.
Hey, good to see everybody here. It's an amazing group of folks. I'm Marcos, the Associate Dean for the College of Ed here at San Jose State, and also a faculty member in Chicanx Studies. I came in 1999 as an assistant professor in what was then called Mexican American Studies. And there's so many things I could say, and I don't really know where to start or how to begin, but I think one of the things that has always been helpful to me along my path is, I've had a lot of privilege in my life, right? So my dad's Mexican, my mom is Dutch. So I'm this light-skinned 6'2" person that has all the privileges that come with that phenotype. It's allowed me to get into spaces and to have opportunities that weren't as easily afforded to some of my folks that are racialized in ways that I never have been. But then identifying with the Chicano community in the way that I have growing up in the family that I have and wanting to seek justice for our community, it's allowed me to hear things that people don't get to hear, to see things that people don't get to see, and to learn from those along the way. And so I think one of the key pieces in my journey has been listening and learning from others in our community and wanting to be an accomplice in their work and in their fight for racial justice, for social justice, for equity. So I think back to like when I started teaching, and like all my jobs have been school related, but one of my first jobs was teaching elementary school in Inglewood, California. And in that context, I got to see our young people treated in really horrible, despicable upsetting ways that I still carry with me, and, you know, and all the pain that came with that. And I want to be somebody who's always thinking about those young people. You know, they came in at 5 and 6. You know, I had a group of kindergartners that were so amazing and beautiful, and we're still, you know, within a few years racialized in really horrible ways. And I also think about like the students that I work with in Yakima, Washington, which is like this very remote space that has a bunch of Mexicano farm workers who nobody ever really pays attention to in terms of their significance to the state of Washington and what that meant. And I learned so much from those people and was able to, you know, do research alongside them and publish a book, including like a whole section that was written in first person from one of the young people that now is a principal in that same community. So yeah, I mean, those are things that I think about when I think about Good Trouble. I think about the necessity of listening to our communities, of walking alongside them, of being a partner in a fight for racial justice. And that's what we try to do here on campus. And so I strive to listen to our students deeply, the ones in the Centro, the ones in our Chicanx studies classes, the one in our teacher education and counselor ed classes. And it's so fulfilling and gratifying because we need those young people. We need them so desperately. They have so much to offer.
Thank you, Marcos, for sharing your inspiration and your experience, and really appreciate your speaking to the purpose of why you do what you do and how it's informed by students and community. Thank you. Next, we're gonna have Maggie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Magdalena Barrera. I'm the Vice Provost for Faculty Success here at San Jose State University. I work very closely with our Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs to really head up all of the recruitment and retention that we do of really dynamic and excellent faculty who are prepared to meet the strengths and needs of our amazing SJSU students. I've been in this role this is my first year in the official kind of formulation of this role. It's a brand new role in the office of the provost. More generally, it started in August 2020. I was in the interim position, and now I'm formally vice provost, a role I never really imagined I would be doing. I started my career at San Jose State in 2008 as a professor in Mexican American Studies. Marcos was my department chair. And I worked my way up through the ranks from associate to full professor. Back then I taught classes in Chicanx history, literature, film, comparative ethnic studies. And I also had the privilege of being a department chair for the department, which was a really great experience. I'm really proud to be a first generation scholar. I'm the granddaughter of traqueros and factory workers who were from Mexico and settled in the US Midwest. I'm also very proud to be a Chicana, not from California or Texas, or the places that we usually think of Mexicans as being from. We're in the Midwest as well. And something I'm really excited about that I've just been working on is I'm the co-author of a forthcoming book called The Latinx Guide to Grad School. Coming from Duke University Press. It's really the first of its kind. It's a book geared towards other first-gen Latinx and other historically underserved students to understand all the unwritten rules of academia as you encounter them as a graduate student. And that was a really fulfilling book to write because it enabled me to revisit a lot of my experiences that at the time were really painful or confusing, and just, you know, higher ed is a very unique and strange place. And so much of what we do, we engage in as if it makes sense and if it's perfectly transparent and normal for, say, faculty evaluation to occur in a certain way or on a particular timeline, or, oh, everyone knows this is the kind of things you submit. And none of that is automatic or makes sense. It's been built up over years, right? So I have a unique opportunity in this role to really challenge a lot of the business as usual that's been going on at San Jose State that, you know, really there's so much potential here and we have so many great faculty. Just how do we make the path wider and easier for them to do work that's really meaningful and ultimately is meeting the mission of the institution, which is really about serving students and transforming not just our students and their families, but whole communities. Faculty play a key role in that. And it's interesting to think about now that I've, you know, have many years under my belt as a faculty member, as a professor, guiding students through different stages of their academic progress. Now, as a vice provost, I feel like I'm doing that same kind of work alongside faculty colleagues. And how do I usher them very smoothly through the stages of their career and onto other meaningful things that are going to be in their futures?
Thanks, Maggie, for sharing your experience and sharing all of your expertise in various parts of the university. And we certainly are glad to have you working on things that you're working on for faculty on our campus. Thank you. And then last but not least, we have Fernanda, who is newly appointed as our interim director of Chicanx Latinx equity in the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And so this is a new position. She's an interim appointment, but she has been here on campus for quite a while and knows a lot of that history across campus. So Fernanda?
Thank you, Kathy, and hello, everybody. Yeah, so as Kathy has said, I am in an interim position right now as the interim director of Chicanx Latinx Equity, and I've been in this position for a couple of weeks. And I think that what I would like to see in this position is see myself as somebody who is supporting and collaborating with those charged with similar focus on Chicanx and Latinx campus-wide initiatives, like the people that are here in this group, and that provide, professional development to support Chicanx Latinx student success, as well as faculty and staff success. So I also see myself as somebody who will be giving a voice to the Chicanx Latinx community and spaces where we are seldom heard. Also address the fact that at times we have been ignored, and also help support efforts for some necessary healing. And a little bit about myself is, well, I'm an immigrant. I've been in the United States for 25 years. I came in my 20s after studying law in Colombia. So one of my interests in researching at this point is part of this Latin American diaspora that I was part of in the 90s, and that we are now seeing in the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s due to violence, to the drug war, and lack of opportunities. So I see myself as somebody who has been, who's, have my life kind of here as well, has created a life here in the US, but also has my life back in Colombia, where my family is and it still resides. I also see that as somebody who has been at San Jose State for next year will be my 20th year, not only as administrators, but I have been not only an administrator, but a staff, a student, I'm an alumna. I've been in different areas for the majority of my time. I was in student affairs, so I got to work with the community, with the student groups, as well as with faculty and staff in developing programs for success for our students. And I think that all of those experiences and my background will help enhance this new position that it's following the model of the Director of Black African American Equity that Dr. Patient Bryant has been doing for the last year. So I have a lot of hopes for this position and for what we can do with this amazing group. And I'm very, very happy and very glad to be part of this new effort that the university has embarked on.
Thank you, Fernanda. Thanks for sharing your background, and certainly you and Ana bring up some very important issues about immigrant identity and experiences in the diaspora. So thank you very much. So I'm gonna, we have amongst our audience some early career folks who are staff and faculty, as well as students who may already have careers, or they'll be entering their early career part of their life soon. So the question I have, which I know that I've asked you, prepped you for, is what advice would you give about doing the type of work that you do? How do people go about? Were you somebody who just the day you hit your first day of college, you said, I'm going to be a vice provost, or I'm going to be an associate dean, or I'm going to be the director of a center, on campus in student affairs? Or did you even know there were jobs in student affairs? I, for one, had no idea that a lot of things happened as students, that you could make a career out of it when I first hit undergrad. So this is really I think part of our job is helping students see something in themselves that they don't even know that they have the potential to do. And I think that all of you are the living embodiment of a lot of that great potential to institute change and to be change agents for your community and for our students and for our employees and local community. So who would like to start and share how would you inspire students or talk to them honestly about how you chose your path and how they can possibly do this? Go ahead, Lily.
Thank you, Kathy. You put it very nicely, and especially when you said, for students who think that there's such thing as a linear path to your career. For some, that is the reality, but I think for a majority of us, we deviated in so many different directions trying to identify what is the right path for me. And that's absolutely how I got to where I am now. I've been in higher education now. I'm starting my 16th year in higher ed. I've been on both sides of the house doing a variety of work in both academic affairs and student affairs. But I had no idea as an undergrad. I completed my undergrad at UC Santa Cruz. Like Magdalena and many of us here, I was the first in my family to go to college, the first in my immediate family, being the oldest. A lot of pressure to go to college. I had no clue what I was doing. Majored in history. I minored in education. But for me, I was in my senior year of undergrad when I was informed after I submitted my candidacy for graduation that I did not have enough units to graduate. I had not met formally with an academic advisor. I didn't know that academic advisors existed. And so lucky for me, I had a peer who shared with me that there was El Centro at UC Santa Cruz that helped offer students internship opportunities. And these internship opportunities came with academic credit, which is what I needed at the time. I needed 8 units to graduate. I couldn't take another additional class. I was already a full-time student. And so I think my fellow peer, Erasmo, giving him credit right now for introducing me to El Centro. He walked me over there, introduced me to the director of El Centro at the time, director now retired Rosalí Cabrera. And I started working as an intern in my senior year. I had 2 quarters there and I was able to fulfill my graduation requirements. But after interning there, I figured, where has this resource been my entire time as an undergrad? Why did I miss out on this opportunity? So I didn't want to leave at that point. I was scheduled to graduate and now I didn't want to graduate because I found a really strong sense of community, someone who saw me, someone who believed in me. So the director at that point said, well, you should consider applying for the program coordinator position. And then that's when I defaulted to my, what is she thinking? Is she, what does she see in me? I can't take on this role. That was a lot for me. And so she encouraged me and pushed me. And so I went ahead and applied for the position and started doing that. And I did that for about 3 years. And the piece of advice that I have for students, which is a piece of advice she gave me, and I consider her my mentor. So I say to students, find yourself mentors that can help guide you and support you. And so she was my mentor and she told me, you need to be careful because people are checking you out. And not in a romantic kind of way. It was more, well, maybe that too, I don't know. But also just sharing, people are looking at your work. And so I wouldn't doubt it if one of these days someone's going to want to offer you another job opportunity and take you away from me. Well, surely enough, that happened. The director of the then EOP office, Educational Opportunity Programs Office, offered me to work with her over the summer to be an academic advisor. And that was my introduction to academic advising. Again, these opportunities were falling on my lap because people saw the good work that I was putting in, the hard work ethic that my parents taught me to do. And so, I would say to students that are interested in these type of careers is if people are coming up to you and sharing with you, hey, you would be good for this opportunity. You should take advantage of this leadership opportunity that I have to offer or that I know about. Take it. walk in through that front door because you never know what's going to happen. And for me, it was my introduction to higher education. You would have asked me, 20 years ago, where do you see yourself? What's your dream job? I had no idea. And so really the mentorship of folks that came before me and who believed in me and saw something in me when I didn't see it in myself, that really helped me get to where I am now. And so I've come full circle. I was a product of El Centro, and now I get to lead the Centro. So for me, that just is super meaningful. And I want to credit the amazing mentors, especially Rosalie Cabrera, who saw something in me when I didn't see it.
Wow. Thank you. That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very inspiring. It really is.
I'd be happy to share next, just because I want to say something very similar to what Lilly shared. We have an aspect of our experience that overlaps. And so the early parts of our story sound a little different, because when I was in college, I went to college aspiring to be a novelist. I was greatly inspired by Sandra Cisneros, and reading The House on Mango Street changed my life. It was in a time before it was commonly assigned in classrooms. And so I found it myself in a bookstore and said, this woman has a Latino sounding name. And I checked out the book and I couldn't believe it was about a Mexican girl growing up in Chicago. And it seemed to tell my family story. And it was so exciting to me. So I thought, I want to do that. I want to become a writer. So I went to college and majored in English, and then also ended up majoring in Latin American studies, because I, from a young age, had a real interest in thinking about race, about injustices, and I didn't have the words to name those experiences, but I sensed they were there, and in what my mom shared with me about our family story and things they had experienced in their past. And so I was just like a sponge, just wanting to soak up the concepts, the histories, the knowledge around that. And I went to a school that didn't have ethnic studies, American studies, anything that I probably would have majored in had I known about it. But they had Latin American studies. I thought, okay, that's my key. I want to stick with English, but then also get this really critical history. I also had the fortune of applying for and being accepted into a research program that's meant to track underrepresented students into academic careers, encourage them to go on to PhD programs and become researchers. And so from a young age, I was on this like very academic track, thinking, oh, I'll go to grad school and then I'll be a professor and I'll just figure it out, right? When I was finishing my PhD, I had a crisis. I really thought, I don't think I want this life after all. I don't think I like teaching that much. And the research is not as fun as I thought writing novels would be, when I first started out in my academic career, my college journey. So I accepted a 3-year teaching postdoc. It's a fellowship that was renewable for up to 3 years, that gives you teaching experience. And the only reason why I accepted it was because it gave me a 3-year window to figure out, well, now that I'm not going to be a professor, now that I finished my PhD, but I don't want to be an academic, what am I going to do? And so here's some income and a slice of time to like get a job. But I'm so thankful to that experience, because that was my first real teaching experience and preparation. And it helped me to realize that not only do I love teaching, but that I think I'm good at it and I like what I'm learning. I'm getting so much from the students. This is a fun environment to be in. So I decided I do want to be a professor, but at a teaching-centered institution. And that's what San Jose State is. And I was very fortunate to apply and to be invited to join the faculty of what was then Mexican American Studies. All right, so then I was working my way through the ranks and was happy to have reached the level of full professor and be department chair. And that was a lot of new professional challenges. I was happy with that work. I had also had a taste of administration through my connection to Kathy when she came on board in the Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I had a role as the faculty in residence for diversifying the faculty. So starting to, this is the years when we revamped our search committee training. And I was really happy. I had one foot in the teaching professor side, a research side of what I do, and one foot in an administrative role. And I like that balance. So that was really a formative experience. And Kathy was someone who, and this is where I want to bring it back to Lily's story. Kathy was someone who would always tell me, you should consider becoming an administrator. And I saved a screenshot of the text from when she said, you would make a really good provost. And I got that text, was like, me? Did she say, it looks like she was typing this to me, but was this supposed to go to someone else? Like, me, a provost? I don't know about this. So, I was happy being a department chair. And then the provost, to my surprise, reached out to me one day out of the blue and said, we've got this new role that we're forming, and would you like to kick it off and step into this role? And the same thing, I was just like, me? Like, is there someone else on this Zoom that he could be talking to? And so I just think it's very powerful when people see things in you that you don't yet recognize in yourself. And someone shared with me once a metaphor of a painting in a frame hanging on the wall can't see its full effect because you're in the perspective of the painting, right? But the people facing the painting see its fullness and the frame around it and everything, like the whole context. And so you need those outside folks, the mentors and trusted senior colleagues who tap you on the shoulder and say, you know what, here's a great opportunity, you should apply. And it's about having the courage to get past the who me stage and actually do it. And you don't stand to lose anything, right? If you don't get that role, that's okay. You're still where you're at. There's going to be new opportunities. But what if you get that invitation, that door opens, and having the courage to step through is really key. And I think especially when you're connected to a community, you realize it's not just about me being in that role and having the glory and the glamour of being, say, a vice provost, but rather it's about a whole set of folks who I carry with me into the spaces where I'm there and engaging, right? When I have a seat at the table, it's not just me, but it's my colleagues, the students I care about, the staff who make a difference, about my family. They're all at the table as well.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Very powerful. Really. Go ahead.
No, I definitely want to. There's some things I definitely relate in terms of like having people in our lives that have seen us, right? Or at least, for my case, that has seen my potential, but also that was willing to listen. And so my experience was a little different just because I kind of took it step by step. The first big question for me right before graduating from high school is, can I even go to college? And so if it wasn't for me telling my best friend for the first time about my status, I don't think I would have found out about this thing called AB 540. And so I remember telling my best friend, and she, came back to me after a few minutes of talking to her over the phone and said, like, hey, I just Googled it, and there's this thing called AB 540, go find out. I'm like, all right, it's already late July, school's about to start in the community college in a few weeks. And so I decided to go to Delta, talk to an advisor, and share with them my situation. It was the first time I was telling anyone in the school system about my status, and so it was pretty nerve-wracking. Once I told them about AB 540 and that I had learned about that law, if they knew anything about it, all they could tell me was like, you know what, hold on, I'll come back. And she came back with a form, told me to fill it out. She didn't know exactly what it was going to do, but it was supposed to be helpful. And so sure enough, later that week, I was able to look at my new fees. And at that time, community college was like $20 a unit. It was super cheap at that time. And I went from paying out-of-state tuition to having to pay in-state. And so, again, I didn't know what that was. All I knew, okay, I actually can go to college and it's somewhat affordable. And so throughout my 2 years there, I ended up joining the Puente program. And again, there was not a lot of institutional support for me in the community college system. Even when I went to the EOPS program to ask for support, they turned me away because of my immigration status. And so getting connected to organizations like the California Dream Network, which came around in 2010 into Delta College, I started getting more informed about issues that specifically impacted undocumented students. And again, this was not the first time I dealt with immigration. My junior year of high school, this is when the immigration marches were happening around 2005, 2006. And so I was very well aware, and also just seeing my own dad, right, just sporting the white T-shirts and showing up to the marches, something I didn't think my dad would do, or just being very aware that these issues are impacting my family, and we really needed an immigration reform way a long time ago. And so navigating higher education and doing the work that I did was more of a response and a necessity for me to try to better understand, what do I have access to? What do I need to do to be able to go to college? And so the following step was, okay, now I need to transfer. I don't know what that means. I don't know what tuition is going to cost. And this is before California Dream Act. This is before DACA. The only thing we had accessible to ourselves was AB 540. And so it took me about 4 years to transfer out, and finally I transferred to UC Santa Cruz, and I only had enough tuition for a quarter and a half, right? And again, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I'm going to UC Santa Cruz. I'm crashing in my aunt's floor, who lived in Watsonville, taking the bus there. And in asking around, because that's one of the things that I feel like I've been doing my whole entire life, right? Just knocking on doors until someone gives me an answer. And so in talking to several people at UC Santa Cruz, they kept on mentioning EOP, so they kept on mentioning one of my dear mentors, Pablo Reguerin, and also our Dean of Students, Alma Cifuente at that time. And so I'm like, okay, let me go reach out to them. And it was the first time where I had staff members at a university tell me, hey, we got answers for you, or we got resources for you. And it was just a mind-blowing experience for me, because I didn't think that I would have access to that. And so my second semester, I got the opportunity to apply to a paid opportunity at EOP. And again, I was just trying to figure out what am I doing and just applying to things as I saw them come out. And when I applied, I was very fortunate to get the position as an undergraduate intern at the EOP office to work with their undocumented student programs. And we were literally in one little room. It was 4 of us just figuring it out, right? And at that time, when I first started, the California DREAM Act had been placed in Governor Brown's office. He had just started his term there. And I feel like I was in a place where I was desperate, right? Like, we need to push for California DREAM Act. We need to get this passed. The previous governor had turned it away several times. And this is, again, me having learned all of these things, having been involved with some of these organizations. And also just talking to folks like Pablo, right? Like, what can we do on our campus to get this information out to other students? And so that's really how I got introduced to this work. So it really took someone to believe in me and to really give me that opportunity to do institutional work. Because I think that, again, that didn't exist even when I was in community college. And so working at UC Santa Cruz really gave me an opportunity to see myself beyond just my status and beyond what I perceived were my limitations. And so what I didn't share is that I initially started wanting to go and become a cinematographer, right? I loved art, I love film, and so I just wanted to do cinematography. I ended up transferring into Santa Cruz into Latin American Latino Studies major, where I focus in literature by complete accident, because I love literature and I love reading. And so my undergrad career, or my undergrad major, had nothing to do with what I was doing. But yet again, my experience working at EOP kind of really helped me inform and realize that I really like working with students, and I really like to be able to implement these practices and be able to be there for students in a way that no one was there for me. And so that's really how I got to where I'm at. And so when I came to San Jose State, I actually decided to come here to take a break from the work of working with undocumented students. So I was an academic advisor for a year at the HNA Student Success Center. But when this position came up, I realized, yeah, I need to go back to this because I'm bored, right? Like, not that I don't love our students, but I think, with our immigrant community, there's a very special tie to them. And I really, really wanted to continue that work. And I was also very fortunate to have folks who checked in with me and said, like, this is a good opportunity for you to apply. And so I took the leap of faith, and here we are.
Here we are. Wow. Wow, your journeys are have so many similarities and differences, but just really powerful. Yeah. Marcos or Fernanda?
I can go, Fernanda, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes me want to read Magdalena's novel and see Ana's film. Like, I wonder what those are going to be like. There's so many things that are on my mind from listening to these stories, so many things to talk about. I mean, one thing that hits me is the impact of intersectional forms of oppression on our own identities and how we see ourselves, right? Like racism, sexism, classism, and our immigration status, and how all those things intersect with how we learn to see ourselves, and the limits that we are told are going to define who we are, right? And in all of our stories, mine included, it's somebody else saying, no, wait a second, it's a different point, multiple points. I mean, that's for sure. I was a knucklehead in so many different ways, and didn't get great, mentorship that would work with my, my the way in which I was. And so it was all these different things of luck that happened along my path. I've got, so many stories of just luck, and somebody believing in me, and really me taking the chance just because I didn't have any better opportunities. It was like, well, if I don't do this, I might have to move home with my parents. So, and that's what happened so much. And I guess, the question that you had, Kathy, was how to support our young people, new professionals, upcoming grads, in doing what's next. And I think all of our stories say, follow your passion. Follow the thing that drives you, the thing that inspires you, the thing that motivates you. And I think for so many of us, first generation, I was supposed to be an engineer, right? I started my first year off as an engineer, and it lasted about 10 weeks into a semester when I realized I have to drop this calculus class or I'm going to get kicked out of school.
Biochem major.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, but it wasn't of interest to me, it wasn't of interest to me. And it took me multiple years before I realized, oh, this thing that really interests me, it's exciting. And so I'm going to pursue it, and I pursued it, and it made things possible. The other thing that's related to this, though, for me, is that we are so needed, right? Our perspectives, like as Ana is describing them, are so needed and necessary. And we're taught to think the opposite. We're taught to think like you have to mold yourself into looking like what we think professional in academia should be. And it's actually the opposite of that. Like, we need different people in these institutions to find different solutions to longstanding problems. And so that's what I think to our young professionals is, like, we need you to just stand up for yourself. When Lilly talks about the centro, like, we were talking about that forever, right? We were talking about that forever. People were here and people weren't listening. And one of the tactics that I realized along the way was I just started talking to people about how necessary this was. Not like you're doing me a favor. This is necessary for your success. That's the way I described it to the provost that we had at the time. Is like, for you to be successful, for you to have the impact you want to have, you need to do this work. And let me explain to you why. And then talking about the research involved. And a lot of times we're talking over people's heads. And that's the Jedi mind trick. It's because when we talk over their heads, they realize they don't know something, and they just start to nod, but then we start to get things, And that's a complicated story. So I think I'm going to pause. But maybe just add one last thing is, like, we have to believe in the work, right? Mm-hmm. We have to let nothing deter us from that work, from that mission that we have, and we have to fight for it, and we have to fight for it with joy, right? We have to fight for it with love and with joy and with commitment, so that it feels like this is a fun thing to be part of, And I think our work at the Centro, in Chicanx Studies, in the College of Ed, trying to build out our programs, it's fun. It's hard as hell, but it's so much fun, and it's really exciting. And so those are my thoughts to our people who are thinking about, how do I find my path?
Thanks. Thank you, Marcos. Fernanda.
Sure. I guess for me, just listening after everybody, I think that I identified with the parents of some of my colleagues who have emigrated from other countries and they have to start all over again. I think that, they instill in their kids their desire to get ahead, work hard, their family values, the importance of school. And I think I had to do all that kind of like on my own in a way, because when I immigrated, I was already very close to graduating from law school. I was going to be a lawyer working on human rights. That was kind of like my passion, but at the same time, it was my fear to graduate in a country where they were, killing lawyers and judges. And to be honest with you, I was very afraid that was going to be a path that I was going to end up in, because I actually saw one of my professors being almost killed right outside of my university. So I was very close to stuff like that. I also lived through the bombings in Bogota from the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel. So, violence for me was very real. So when I immigrated to the United States, I had that desire of advocacy, of being somebody who was going to support people who perhaps couldn't speak for themselves. But when I got here, I was like, I want another path. I don't want to get into that again. And at the same time, I had this realization that how smart I was in my own language. I was stupid in another language. I couldn't communicate the way I used to communicate in Colombia, in my Spanish, how, you know, I used to write beautifully, and I also was a TA. And so all those things kind of like were erased by my immigration status, by my coming to the US. So I will say to the students, basically, don't be afraid to start all over again. I think for me, it was really hard those first few years, not, you know, almost, it took me almost 10, 15 years to really come full circle to where I was supposed to be and how secure could I be. And I still work on it, because as an immigrant, you're always judging and doubting yourself, questioning, kind of like, where do I fit in? Do people understand me? I'm always misunderstood. So there is a lot of these insecurities that obviously I don't see in my kids who are mixed. And I feel that sometimes we forget that with our immigrant community. We forget that they have that like very traumatic experience to leaving something that they love, and then they have to kind of like recreate something that is lovable in another country where people do not understand their personality. Sometimes I share with my team here in the ODI, which is a very safe space. I said, I don't think you ever will get to know me as who I am, because I can't speak to you in my own language. And I see that in all my, you know, all the students that are immigrants here at San Jose State. So that will be my take into this conversation of what Marcos was talking about, our oppressed identities and how they shape us. And how it is important to don't give up. And at the end, I think you get to work on the things that you actually care. And I think my problem was not following that passion because I was afraid of it. But now I'm working on it, right? I'm working in an area that is very dear and close to me. And I want to continue doing that and, you know, go deeper into what I was just saying, this Latin American diaspora. And also another part of this is that I realized that I'm a full-fledged feminist. And I think if I had stayed in Colombia, I don't think I would have experienced that. But at the same time, has been a process, right? And I am like exploring this whole concept of the colonial feminism and how our native cultures have shaped, you know, this movement of resistance of the colonizing education, the colonizing institutions. And so I feel that by my immigration process, I have also been in touch with who I am as a person. So it's very interesting. It's very kind of muddy and convoluted and, you know, going back and forth. But I feel that I'm at a point in my life right now that I feel more true to who I am or who I was supposed to be.
Great. Thank you, Fernanda. I think I just want to, I mean, first of all, wow. I'm just sitting here stunned listening to all these stories. And I know that our listeners are feeling the same thing. I think one of the major lessons I think that I hear in all of your stories is courage, which Marcos has mentioned, all of you have mentioned, but also to be ready to be courageous when those opportunities arise, right? And that taking those chances it's important for you, because I think that a lot of times students see us as fully formed career adults and they kind of think I'm never going to be that, or what, you know, what did it take to be, everything had to be lined up to be that. And from hearing your stories, that was not the case. You know, that is, some of it is idiosyncratic and some of it is having the courage to say, oh, that door is open and jumping through. And what I hear also is that you're jumping through because your passion is to advocate and to help and to uplift communities, and because you have been through, all of you have been through understanding what it's like to not have that support and to not have those resources. And so we are so fortunate at San Jose State to have all of you here on our campus. There are many other people on campus, but this is probably, you know, I think this is such an important Zoom interview with all of you, because I think it's a record of all of your work and your journey to where we are here at San Jose State today, and our students definitely benefit, as well as our colleagues benefit from all of your work. So I'm very grateful, and know that you are out there working alongside all of us. It's really inspiring. So thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know we had to reschedule this several times, and so just really appreciate your being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's just appreciate the work that all of you do, and really honored to be your colleague, and continuing the work. All right, more to come.
More to come. Yep.
Absolutely. Maybe think of one thing too, in terms of the good trouble is, like we're taught sometimes to think like we're the problem, we're the one causing trouble, when it's our institutions that are troubled.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're not actually even causing trouble. We're just trying to make these institutions better.
Right.
So I hope people will also remember that as they engage in that work. You're not the problem.
Yeah. And also sometimes just being straight up and being truth telling is seen as trouble or seen as rage or anger. And sometimes, of course, rage and anger is justified, but a lot of times we are projected, the projection onto us that we are troublemakers, right? Or that we're too angry. And in actuality, we're just speaking truth, right? We're speaking what we see. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. And I want to thank my colleagues here on the call, but also an invitation to our students to come and be good troublemakers with us. So
very good.
If
Love
you want to learn better ways
that.
of doing that, I think all of us are available and would love to work with you and work alongside of you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, it's definitely an honor to be here with you all, and being accomplices along with our students, right? And not just advocating, but also just allowing them to speak up for themselves. Because oftentimes we hear sometimes like, oh, our students don't have a voice, or certain communities don't have voices. Like, no, we do. I know my mom does, right? And that's a terrifying voice. But we just need to be able to create a space where people can feel brave and safe to be able to speak their truth, and us, right, as leaders, to also be able to help them facilitate those conversations, because we know that we have allies on our campus that are ready to support. And sometimes it's just providing them with the tools, or also just convincing leadership that this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, very glad to have this this interview with all my colleagues, and thank you, Kathy, for the opportunity, and looking forward to all the things that we are going to accomplish in the future.
Right. Bye-bye. Great.
Thank you all.